Welcome to the recording of the very last podcast.
Hey team, Angus Strachan here. Welcome to the Film Slides podcast. I'm joined
again
with
Start again.
people that keep interrupting my intro. Particularly do Broman Richards and Kate Dunn.
Wait, are we sticking with this
How
one?
are we? Yeah.
Okay.
Even
was
though you
first in
keep
the building.
talking over me, we're going to stick with it.
Oh, hi.
How are we?
Welcome.
This just seems like laziness at this point.
Alright, we are reviewing a movie first, but lads, I thought this week, seeing as it is the week of the Oscars, we might just have a quick little go through what won, what didn't, and compare it to our thoughts.
I'm up for a quick go through.
What do you
I
reckon?
love a quick go through.
Love a quick go through? Excellent. Cue the Oscars music. We don't have Oscars music. Alright,
Bust a move.
so let's start off with our best supporting actor, Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt for Troy. We reviewed that film last year, right?
Yeah.
No.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Brad Pitt.
I'm a fan of that. Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah.
It was my
Good.
favourite part of the film.
Good.
He was up against
Sexy
Tom Hanks,
beast of a
Anthony
man.
Hopkins, Al Pacino, and Joel Pesci. So
Up against
obviously,
all other people we haven't seen the movies of.
Did you say Joel Pesci?
yeah, Joe's younger brother, Joel.
Joe's younger brother, Joel Pesci.
That's
on
why
you,
he's supporting.
He really could have done with a pick-me-up because no one actually knows who he is.
He was the only one that didn't need the de-aging.
So congratulations, Brad Pitt. You've done it again. You
Good on
sly
ya.
son of a bitch.
And you know what? He really needed it because his career,
It was going down.
it needed
It
to
was
pick
going
up because at this point he's really just been sort of.
That's it.
And you know what? You got nice arms, Pitt.
That almost
Got him.
worked. That almost worked.
All right, best
long
supporting
one for.
actress. Any guesses? Do you guys know?
ScarJo?
No.
I don't know. She was nominated like 6 times. So.
Laura Dern from
Laura Dern.
Marriage Story, a
Need to-
movie that
need to
we
watch
haven't
that.
seen.
Need to watch that film.
Which, yeah.
It's on the list. It's on the list next to like 17
This-
really good films,
How did
and I'm
we
like,
watch a movie every
I'm
week?
just gonna watch some other boring ass TV show again.
How did we watch a movie every week and not cover any of the films in the Oscars?
There was like 15 films that were nominated for Golden Globes and Oscars that we did watch.
We are losing credibility the further down the list we go, but let's keep going.
All right.
Best animated film, we've got Toy Story 4, which I think we said.
We watched that one.
We did watch that one. I think
watched
we
that
even
one.
nominated that as the best animation, so that's good.
Because it was one of two that we watched.
Best adapted screenplay was Taika Waititi for Jojo
Jojo.
Rabbit.
Jojo.
Nice. Good on him.
Comedy,
that was a good film.
yeah. Best original screenplay was Bong Joon-ho, who directed Parasite.
Yep. Got to see that. Got to see that.
Yeah, we should watch that movie.
Really
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
see that. Yeah, as I said, it's probably going to get worse.
I'm pretty sure it's only showing at Nova like once a day though.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard to see.
Yeah, we'll see. I put this in there because I was excited about it, but you guys probably aren't. Best cinematography was Roger Deakins for 1917.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Which does go to show that really, if you want an Oscar, you just need to pull off a one-shot.
Pull off a
Because
one.
Birdman also
No,
won
we need
for
to be
that.
clear.
And,
Don't pull off in a one shot.
and was it Revenant? Was Revenant a one-shot?
Revenant had a really big one shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really, you just need to
I mean,
pull off a
Avengers had
one-shot.
one,
And then...
So did Netflix's Daredevil, True Detective.
Oh, True
The Haunting
Detective.
on Hill House.
True Detective was excellent. That one shot in the
Yeah.
first season.
Best international film?
Yeah.
Probably
Parasite.
Yep.
Yep, Parasite won.
Does it really need the caveat international film?
No.
I think the reason we didn't say it is we couldn't.
Does that
afford
mean
the plane
all of the
ticket.
other films were American made?
Yeah, I guess so.
Because like, what about like a British film or an Australian film? Would that be count as a international?
I think
film?
it's non-English speaking. I think is the
Okay.
terminology.
They should write that in. Best
Yeah,
non-English.
non-English
Best
speaking.
non-English.
Best we don't
film.
speak your language film?
We've got best director,
That's what she.
which is Bong Joon-ho for Parasite.
Parasite.
Nice.
Yes, and
Gotta
if
watch-
you,
gotta
if
watch
you,
that.
yeah, if you have a chance to see his,
We should watch that movie.
Wait, is he best international director?
no, just best director.
Best
What the
not
fuck's going
English
on?
speaking.
They just put the international thing in just so they could have some more films in there.
Best.
Yeah,
And
no,
it's like all of these films that everyone else in the world's making are much better than ours. We've got to make sure one American film wins.
the best non-English speaking director.
Yeah, but if you do have a chance to look at his acceptance speech, it is quite moving. So he was in the
He runs around a lot?
He was, well, yeah, no, he was in the
He
in
gives
the
everyone
category.
rollerblades and they
with-
all move around.
He was in the category with like up against Martin Scorsese for The Irishman and Quentin Tarantino, and he kind of gave shout outs to both of them. saying like I studied Scorsese in school and like he was like
Sounds like he's just making
such
him
a-
feel old. It's like
Yeah.
it's like a burn. I remember
old.
when I was like young, like I'm still young, and you were really old back then. Like you're older now, but I remember back then when you were old.
But
still.
yeah, he says, you know, thanks to Martin Scorsese, and he says thanks to Quentin Tarantino as well, and it was really nice to see. It was a little heart moving moment there.
And then they all hugged.
Definitely go have a look at that. But my favourite quote does come from that same clip of the Oscars. My favourite quote of the Oscars, which was
Who has a favourite quote from the Oscars?
me, which
My
was
favorite quote
right after.
from most of the Oscars, I'm going to
Yeah.
jump in here. My favorite quote from the Oscars is the bit where they're like, and now the person who's going to be hosting and announcing the award for, that's my favorite. The
Oscars aren't hosted, so you might have watched something different.
My favorite one is just where there's a slow pan of people
there you go.
applauding.
That was the Golden Lobes. I apologise. That was the Golden Lobes. It's for the best
that's an
earlobes
yeah, it's
that
an ear
anyone
thing.
has. Golden Lobes. Yeah,
Brody's
they only
other-
have one award.
Brody's other
They
interest.
don't worry about this
Easy
international,
to-
male or female.
easy
They
to
just
get-
have one
get
award, best lobes.
confused.
Who's ever got the best lobes wins it.
Pretty great speeches out of that.
Anyway, Dominic Freeman
my
got the best
favourite-
lobes for 2019. What a pair.
You know what? It doesn't even matter anymore. Best actor, Joaquin Phoenix
Yes.
for Joker, which makes sense
Joaquin.
considering everyone else that was in his category. I was like,
Hang on, he didn't just. Don't take that away from him. You've made that sound like you won by default.
Also,
he did a great job.
You've got Antonio Banderas for Pain and Glory, which we've all
Didn't
seen,
see.
obviously.
Didn't see.
Leonardo DiCaprio for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
We did see
which
that.
was
We saw that one.
just kind of,
English movie.
you know, overacting. Adam Driver in Marriage Story.
I love how you're
we've
just
also
throwing
seen.
shade at all these actors.
Need to watch Marriage Story.
Yeah.
Need to watch that.
Joaquin Phoenix won, and
Joaquin.
Jonathan Pryce for The Two Popes.
Jonathan.
So out of those
Jonathan
movies,
really paid the price for it.
we've-
Sorry.
out of those movies, we've seen 2 performances.
We're not
Way to throw shade on this whole thing.
You shouldn't shade at us.
Sorry,
I
I
love-
thought this was a critical podcast.
I love that you were like, all right, let's do the Oscars. I mean, these guys won probably mainly by default. Also, we're a shit podcast. Why did you bring this up, Angus?
I never said we were a shit
You've
podcast.
really thrown shade.
You're
at
throwing shade at our podcast.
I'm throwing shade-
Thank you
I'm
very
throwing
I
much.
would like
shade at
to
you. Brody's fine.
apologise
Hey, man, how are you?
to the listeners. We're having some issues, as you can probably understand. Angus and Jordan have broken up, and so
Anyway,
they're going through.
Joaquin
I
things.
do
Phoenix
actually
won.
need my toothbrush back.
They've both signed contracts, so they have to be here.
Okay,
if you
they're
could
not
clean it
happy about
first.
This is going for way too long. We haven't even talked about the movie that we're reviewing this week.
It's fine. I don't have
Best
much to say.
actress.
Me either.
You've spoken for the first 8 minutes of the podcast. Best actress, Renee Zellweger for Judy.
Oh, good.
Oh, didn't see that
No,
one.
we didn't.
Anything to fucking say?
Hey, did you see it? Did you see it? Podcast hoster? Pod host?
Best picture got Parasite.
Yeah,
And
good.
to finish
Parasite, gotta see-
to
gotta
finish
see
up the story, Eminem came on and sung a song.
Oh, good. What do you sing?
Yeah.
Did he sing or did he rap?
Well, he rapped. He
Okay,
performed.
thank God. I was going to say, Eminem came on and he sang.
He
Yeah.
sang and no one liked it.
You can see where he raps. No, he performed "Lose Yourself," which was the song that won Best Song back when his movie came out. What is it? 12 Mile?
8 Mile.
8 Mile.
12 Miles is a
Got to
sequel.
see 8 Mile. Still haven't seen 8 Mile. It's on the list. Got to see 8 Mile.
I'm pretty sure I understand. He lives
Sorry,
at the
it's
end.
12K, but 8 Mile. Yeah, but he didn't actually rock up to accept that award, so he rocked up 14 years later.
Good on
Anyway,
him.
that was the very short and brief synopsis of the Oscars. You're welcome, everyone.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
And
On
now,
behalf of everyone, thanks.
Gotta watch Parasite. Gotta watch it.
Yeah. Look, go out and watch Parasite.
good. I'm glad we're all on the
Just a
same page.
blanket recommendation for a film you haven't seen.
All right. Anyway, on to the movie that has nothing to do with the Oscars
And
No.
never will.
and never will. Midway.
Midway towards a good film.
That's it. Midway is kind of when you stop watching the Oscars.
I would really like Brody to
on.
give the synopsis for this.
Burn.
Because
Burn.
Brody's confirmed to me multiple times that he can't remember the movie. So if Brody could do the synopsis, that would be dandy.
The Americans join World War II.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And that's a...
In a nutshell.
If you can't see right now, I am sticking up a finger to watch
Flipping
your...
me the bird.
I like how you asked if you can't see right now, as if there's an option for
There's
them
an
to
option.
see.
Hey, we can see. The three of us are here.
I'll be listening to this
You were talking
whenever we drop
specifically
it.
to
Yeah,
me.
I was talking to everyone listening. That includes the two of you.
All right, would you watch it, or would you not, or would you
Wait for
recommend
streaming.
it for streaming?
This is halfway between not and wait for streaming.
Yeah.
For me, if you're at home with your dad and,
Yeah, I was gonna
there's
say.
no one else around, and dad's like, I'm just gonna put on a bloody bit of a bloody war film.
Dad, what are we going to watch?
This is getting into a bit of a roleplay scenario. I'm not
Get off
comfortable
his
with.
lap.
I'm not comfortable with.
You're 24.
First of all, son, put on some bloody clothes.
First of all, I'm 25. And second of all, it's hot.
I would agree.
Watch this.
the-
I actually did watch this with my dad.
Yeah.
It's really,
At
it
the
meets
minimum.
the quota for like 3 dad films a year about war that have to be dropped.
Yeah, this is
first
ultimate dad flick.
Yeah.
So whether
I just
you're
want to
in
say for the
cinemas
record
or
that
streaming-
my dad is not a typical dad. He's not a big war film fan.
Did your dad like it?
No, my dad did not like it.
No,
but my
fair
dad
enough.
has pretty decent taste when it comes to films.
My dad watched this film and he thought it was fine. And my mum watched this film and she thought it
It was
was
trash.
fine.
It was
because
fine.
dad thought it was fine
Right.
and mum didn't care.
Fair enough.
I agree with Brody. I'm going to say wait for streaming, put it on, don't pay attention to it. If your dad's in the room, he'll pay attention to it, and then you can steal shit from his wallet. I mean,
If your dad's
or
not in the
don't
room,
watch
you
it.
don't really have an excuse to be watching this film and all the stuff that's on Netflix.
It's pretty paint by numbers war film.
Yeah, I mean, it's a time in history, I guess. So if you enjoy that stuff, then that's what you get. But you don't really get anything else besides.
There are better films that
Besides
do
that,
it though.
yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that's it. Initial thoughts with the film. It's
really
In a
choppy.
post 1917 world,
It's really choppy, and there's a lot of characters that don't really get any substance or arc, and it really all just culminates to say, "Yay, America!" And that's kind of the whole film. And if you're all for "Yay, America," we also had guns at that point in time. Then watch this, but it's just real choppy and shit.
not sure I followed that, but okay.
No, I'm sure
If you've got guns,
people at
you'll
home
like this
listening
film.
and people that aren't at home listening, they loved it.
Okay, cool. No, I would agree. I think this film is very CGI heavy, which is a bit
Yeah.
jarring considering the time frame in which this is set. And I think the script is pretty basic. Like, you've got a whole bunch of one-liners.
It's a
and whole
basic bitch film.
Very, very kind of easy written stuff. Like,
George is going to go have a nap.
Yeah. You just go
George
to
just
bed.
crawled onto a bed.
Let's go.
For everyone listening who can't see, Jordan just crawled onto a bed.
I'm just gonna have a lie down, lads.
For a film that's taken just a segment of history, there should be a lot that's already written. So you'd assume that the time writing that actually, kind of put into some good dialogue, but not really.
Plus, I would also really like, one of the great reasons about 1917 is because it's a very personal story. You're there with two people, and then that's pretty much it. But this film, like a lot of other American war films, it's just about a cast of people that are all doing their own thing, and half of them die, and then you don't even know the names and stuff, and it's kind of like very voiceless, almost. Whereas I think I would much prefer if we just stuck with the main pilot that we're kind of with throughout the entire film, and we're just with them, because it'd be a very, very personal story.
Yeah, definitely. Now this director, Roland Emmerich, he's directed something before that you will
love
all
your
know.
enthusiasm.
It was Independence Day. It's the director of Independence Day.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, this I had a look through.
He's
through
really
his stuff
stepped
before.
it up a notch.
He's done just a lot of kind of blowy up films, a lot of explosions. Independence
So it's
Day.
like-
He did Godzilla, 1998.
Oh, yeah.
Which
I liked that when I was a kid.
And The Day After Tomorrow.
I liked Day After Tomorrow.
And The Patriot with Mel Gibson,
Haven't seen that.
which, well,
It's like a discount Michael Bay.
it's exactly. Which is funny you mentioned that, because
I think
it's
these
very
films are-
reminiscent of Pearl Harbor, which was directed by Michael Bay and was also a bit not on the point.
All right, every dad just stop listening to you right now.
Yeah, a lot of people like Pearl Harbor.
Don't you mess with my Bay. No, there you go. But it does have a pretty good cast.
It does.
You've got
Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson.
Top notch.
Which he's not
Bjorn
really
Ironside from Vikings.
I know.
But I bloody love seeing him in a bunch of films recently.
He very clearly was in between doing Vikings and he
just
said yes to like
Bad
6
Boys.
films.
Yep.
And bloody love seeing him. What a tank of a man. He is like over 6'2" and he is jacked. And I bloody love it.
He's a big boy.
Luke Evans, Nick Jonas, weirdly in this film.
Nick Jonas, our arguably lead, Ed Skrein, who we will know from the
Deadpool.
bad guy in Deadpool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Patrick Wilson.
I mean, they all did fine. They were all at war on a boat. Like, I mean,
they all stood in front of a green screen. They
Yeah.
squinted their eyes into the sun, and they all said,
I'm not even sure if they were on a boat.
"Oh heck!" And they all did that. Good on them.
There was that old guy with shingles.
That was true. That was weird. We're going to talk about that.
What's
when we
his
come
name
back
again,
to
I
it.
guess? I know him because he's in the
Dennis
parent trap.
Quaid.
Yeah, there you go, Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid.
Quaid.
William Bull.
I like the last
Halsey,
name, Quaid.
he played. Quaid. Do you think I'm the real Quaid? Because I am.
Because I am.
Cinema Dicks.
Cinema dicks, phone fuckers. Sorry, that's
Man,
We need to get a stinger for that.
Yeah, I want a button that I can just press, and every time we hit cinema dicks, I'm just gonna press that out of like sheer reflex.
that's a whole new sport.
I would like to make an apology to all of the listeners. I don't know. I'm just getting jaded. We've done like over 100 of these, and I think every single film there's been someone looking at their phone, just
Someone
like,
on their phone.
turn your fucking brightness down. What's with these people that go into cinemas and like, if you're gonna check your phone, why is your brightness still at maximum? Why were you oh geez, you were looking at your phone before the film started, and it would have been bright as hell in that dark room. You would have put the brightness down a bit. Oh man,
I like to think they turned it up to annoy you.
I reckon it's all these bastards that just have it left, that have their brightness left on automatic.
Yeah.
And so like no matter what, it's just like
Yeah. Cane Dogs. Cinema Dick.
Oh, I thought you were going to ask if I'm one of those bastards. I
Cane
am a
Dogs,
dick.
Are you a dick?
No, I had no cinema dick. I
Fair
had no
enough.
such dick.
I'm trying to remember. I don't think I had a Cinema Dick either. I saw this quite a while ago, so I can't quite remember. All right, let's head into spoilers.
Spoilers, Las Vegas.
It didn't work.
Oh,
There we
what
go.
cool sound effect, Angus.
I just had to press the button harder. All right, we're in the spoiler section where we dissect and
This
divulge
podcast
everything
is
about
really
the film,
gone downhill.
especially when you talk over me. Anyway, Cane Dogs. Spoilers.
Spoily.
No, you know what it's time for?
Are we spoiling my
It
life?
is time for
what's in the
mail. That's right. What's in the mailbox? Our famous segment that you can both hear because you remembered
Yeah.
to bring your headphones,
Yeah.
like good little podcasters.
Hey, I did
Hold
ask
on.
you to remind me to come today, and you didn't.
I would like to point out.
And so I think it's a pretty good fact that I even showed up.
That's fair.
I'd like to point out that I don't own any headphones. Brody brings them for me.
Not sure if worst.
Not sure if better or worse.
Cool. Well, anything in the mailbox for you guys? Anyone
Anything
say?
in
well-
the box of men? What?
I was
Mailbox.
told by Angus to add you both as admin, so I added Angus as an admin and I added Brody to the Facebook page as an editor.
As an editor.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I am lead editor.
You're the only editor.
Oh, even better.
You're in charge of nothing.
I'll be the only editor.
We've given you zero responsibility.
Hey.
How do I check? This is the first time I've checked Facebook. Let me just-
22 people reach.
0 engagements.
Oh.
We got 0 engagements.
We asked everyone to marry us, and we got
And
0 engagements.
I thought,
22 people saw it.
I thought the whole point of just making the mailbox is that we don't have to announce when we get nothing.
Yeah. All right, that was
what's in the
Mail.
box?
weirdly on time. All right, spoilers. Here we go. The movie's about time in place in history, and you already know what happened. The Americans win.
So it's
Fuck,
about
you're good at your
the like what surface to surface, like ocean ship-based attack on the Midway
Navy.
Islands shortly after the
Attack of Pearl Harbor.
attack on Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, so the movie starts out and we kind of see the attack on Pearl Harbor. We see these massive explosions and we kind of get introduced to most of the characters, get introduced to Bjorn Ironside. He fucks off.
He dies off screen.
Off
Yeah,
screen.
he dies off screen immediately.
I
I would
did
have loved
chuckle.
if he was the main
I
character.
did. I did chuckle.
Axing people in the face.
I did chuckle to myself because I know how much you guys love him, and for him to be a character that dies off, I was like,
He was probably my favorite character.
Yeah,
to be
me
fair.
too, yeah.
To be fair.
He
I
said
will
maybe
say,
2 lines,
him
but
and
I was like,
Woody Harrelson and Night Owl.
Yeah.
They were pretty good.
Yeah. So we see Pearl Harbor, and then it's basically just the Americans going, that was the biggest military fuck up in all of American history.
Intelligence fuck up.
Yeah. What did I say? American fuck up.
No, you said military.
Oh, military fuck up.
No, it's just the biggest American fuck up in history. It's just
I don't know.
And so
know.
the stakes are basically if the Japanese Navy take control of the Midway Islands, and they will basically have a base of operations which will let them
They'll control the Pacific.
invade the west coast of America.
Yeah. So, and it's worth noting that the Americans weren't prepared for war at this time.
No.
So a lot of the stuff that they're fighting with are not good.
Yeah, it's
like not
it's
up to war grade.
This is
like,
the stuff that we have to run drills in case we go to war.
It's like
Yeah,
when you
exactly.
leave high school, you've got your older brother's car, you
Yeah, that's
you just got a
Older
bunch of
brother's
random
car.
shit.
The hand-me-down suit that he wore when he had a job.
Yeah, you're like a study as a musician. You've got like a second-hand
you
guitar.
live by yourself,
and
but
just
it's in the granny flat out the back.
yeah.
Yeah, pretty much that. So
It's
the
like
Americans
Angus,
are in
who's
the granny
keeping
flat.
keeping his door closed with a washing
The washing basket.
with a dirty
Because
clothes basket.
Ghost was
It
the reason
works.
you
Yeah,
gave
because
me?
of Ghost. Yeah.
Because
It
Ghost.
works. I'm fine.
Or it's like, I'm pretty sure my brother lived in a place for an entire year without having a bed. He just had a mattress.
Yep. I can
That's easy to
So take those and imagine the American Navy.
and that's what this movie
That's
is.
what this movie is.
That's
Great
also what they had
synopsis.
when they made this movie.
Versus the Japanese Navy, which is basically excelling at their jobs.
Yeah.
So,
you know.
all right. We've babbled on way too much at the start of this podcast. So nice and quick, what's your favourite part of the film? before
Patrick
we-
Wilson.
Cool.
He was Night Owl, but also he was just great in this.
Okay.
He's just charismatic and likable in every scene he did. He was
Yeah.
believable every time he's on screen, and he's like, "Look, I know you don't have facts to believe me, but
Yeah.
you need to trust me." And he's believable. He's a good actor. You genuinely believe him.
So he played the intelligence kind of
Intelligence
officer, the main
officer, yeah.
officer. And the reason I guess this battle is so well known and so kind of up there in American culture is it was basically that intelligence that made them win the fight. Like they were very underarmed.
The Americans were able
and
to
very
do a surprise attack
I like-
on the Japanese
but they
Navy.
won purely on intelligence, which kind of just goes to show how important intelligence is in warfare.
Why we need to start working on that.
So yeah, so I do agree. Patrick Wilson
That,
did
and I liked
a top job.
Aaron Eckhart, who, if you don't know, he was Two-Face in The Dark
Yeah.
Knight. But I would have watched a whole film just about him and his, because there's like a weird
Jimmy
side
Doolittle.
mission there's a weird side mission in this where it's like him and a bunch of other people go and attack Japan. And I would have watched a whole movie just about that, with him as the lead, and that would have been more interesting. And then he lands in
China.
and then he's just sort of shift off screen, and then we never see him again until roll credits.
It's kind of like there's like obviously there's more than one mission going on, and they kind of like this happens, but
The problem with
I
It's
mean,
the
the
story.
only-
It's the story of Midway. It's not the story
Yeah.
of any of the characters.
Bragman, most positive.
My favorite part is kind of a two-parter. The first part is I love how
Woody Harrelson's wig looked.
I love how low tech everything was and how they made that a bit of a showcase.
Yeah.
And that leads into my second favorite part, which is I loved all the times they missed. I loved them missing.
Yeah.
I actually thought that was really, really good. There's an entire like 10 to 15 minute sequence of this film where there's about a submarine and the crew of the submarine just trying to getting up inside the Japanese fleet and firing a torpedo, and the torpedo like skims across the water.
Yeah.
And it's just like just misses the ship, and
by
it's just like there were so many kind of good moments where it was like they just kept missing. They kept dropping torpedoes and missing, and they kept dropping bombs and they just kept missing. And it only took there was only a very few small amount of times where they hit, and it was just like I really enjoyed those moments.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree, and that's probably one of my favorite things about the film as well is that it's kind of
just
realistic,
stealing
right?
myself.
Like, yeah, but it is. It's kind of realistic. That's kind of what happened. Like, you
When they were
more
dropping
often than
bombs,
not,
they had
you
a
would
bomb.
miss.
They had a bomb and a target.
Yeah,
And it wasn't they and nothing else.
That's
they had
all
their
they-
eyes and
yeah,
they
that's
had
all they
their
had.
intuition.
yeah,
insane.
I really like that. And I guess going off of that, the thing that I did enjoy, which I probably goes against your guys' views a bit, I enjoyed that they killed off characters. They introduced people and they killed them off, which is kind of like what would have happened in war. You know, like you don't always have the hero person that kind of always makes it home safe. Sometimes people just get shot down, they get in a bad situation, and they get killed. Like
I'm also happy, but I would like it if they still had that central character. Because
sorry, go on, you first.
Well, I just think that if they had that central character, which is the pilot in this film, if they followed along from him, it could have been a very similar to the Ford versus Ferrari type thing. You know, the very end of Ford versus Ferrari.
To at least someone.
Yeah, at the end of Ford versus Ferrari, if you haven't seen that, I'm going to spoil that film for you. Basically, a character dies at the end of the film, and you're like, oh man. And in this film, in Midway, the kind of lead character inhales a toxic gas, and he can never fly again. And there's that similar kind of like moment of like, this person's never going to fly again, and they're flying is like the thing that they do. And so if they followed that main character, had the other characters introduced as friends and stuff, and they all died, and then there's main character that put everything on the line, and he can never fly again, I think it would have had a much better kind of full stop at the end of the film than it did.
Well, there's one part where towards the very end of the film, our main pilot that Brody keeps referring to is like, come on, Murray, you've always been my wingman, you can do this. And I was like, who the fuck is Murray? No, I'm pretty sure he is name dropped a few times, but I didn't recognize him amongst every other character wearing the same outfit who looked the same, and he never did anything until that moment. And so I didn't give a toss about Murray. Or like the Jonas
sentence, I didn't give a toss about Murray. Yeah. Great.
And the Jonas brother is in this, and again, I think his death is the one I cared about the most. Is the Jonas brother, whoever his character name was. But I think that's more just because the way he died was horrific.
Which he was like wasn't actually the way he died. I did a bit of digging into it because I'm a bit of a history nerd, and turns out he did actually
survive. I like and breathes underwater now as a merman.
No, I actually, which is coming into my negatives.
It's my favorite graphic novel, Merman.
The Jonas brother, Merman.
coming into the negatives, I think. For me, the things that I really liked was that it kept to reality, and when it didn't keep to reality was the bits that I really hated. So, for instance, Nick Jonas's character, in reality, he was captured by the Japanese, but there's a really quirky story where they're being tortured, not tortured, but they're being questioned by the Japanese.
That is quirky.
They're being asked by the Japanese, like, where's the military, blah, blah, blah. And they actually gave up information about Midway. But the thing was that they didn't actually know anything about Midway because they'd never been on there. So they were just giving them like false information. So they palmed off all of this false information and then were like, yeah, okay, we're going to execute you now. And and both of them were like the pilot and the gunner, the wingman. They were both like, yeah, cool. We're ready to die for our country. Like, see you later kind of thing. Whereas in this, they kind of made it kind of just like more of like a fuck you, like I'm
a bit cocky-ish.
I'm a bit of a
and also they made the Japanese very brutal. Is that though he didn't die like that? He didn't get killed by sinking to the bottom of the ocean?
I imagine he probably did.
Oh, okay.
Although, why would you throw away a
perfectly
good anchor?
I thought
it's just weighing you down there.
I honestly thought that when it happened though, I was like, you could tie anything to him, or you could just shoot him.
Yeah.
Why waste an anchor?
While we're on the negatives, my biggest problem was the American propaganda. So I've watched a few reviews where people it's really good to see that they don't like demonize Japan, and Japan are just people too fighting on the other side. But in this movie, they do. Cane Dogs, you mentioned the Doolittle arc. Where they go and they bomb and they get in China and stuff, and then the planes come and they start shooting all the Chinese people, and he's like, what are they, there's no military base here, what are they doing? Oh, they're just shooting people for the sake of shooting people. And the Americans are like, those bastards. Then they drop 2 atomic bombs on Japan. So
that is fair.
You know, it's a little one-sided heavy propaganda for America. That's all I'm saying.
I agree with you, and I specifically agree with you because when the credits roll at the end, and it's like, it tells you what happened to all the colonels and the soldiers that we got introduced to in real life, and then it tells us like 1 or 2 of the people on the Japanese side, as if this story was like, we're telling this from a non-biased perspective. This is just plain and simply, what are you talking about? We made everything that happened was from the American perspective, except one thing at the beginning and one thing at the end. And both times, I barely followed what was happening. It's not because I can't read. but it's also because I can't read.
I completely get what you were talking about. It is also a little bit hard not to be biased when you're talking about the allies of the Nazis.
Yeah, it's also hard not to be biased when...
So let's just say, it's like, I completely understand what you mean.
It's hard not to be biased as well when they won the war and they're the one that made the film. There's going to be bias there, obviously.
More so, it's just kind of hiding the fact that they actually did some dumb
Everyone did terrible
stuff as well. Any other negatives? What happened to the submarine? It just went away.
It was like you and I inside. It disappeared. It died off screen.
Died off screen. Biggest negative I have with this film, I think, is that for a lot of the time, I didn't really know what was happening. I understood the general idea, I understood the general basis of most missions, but there's so much stuff in between where they cut between times or they just skip forward 4 or 5 years. There's just so much stuff that just happens. And I follow the conversation a little bit, but for a lot of it, they're in planes and something's happening, or a plane explodes. I'm like, wait, was that the main character? But then it cuts and it wasn't him, and I'm like, okay, what are they doing? But there's just so many missions that I didn't really understand what the purpose was, and I'm putting that down to just really, really choppy exposition, where everything is clunky, and because every character talks the same and sounds the same, and the whole movie is exposition of this is our mission, this is what we're doing, and that goes for about 2 hours. It's impossible to not just tune out. And the minute you tune out and you go, oh, there's a little part of that. Oh, I went to the screen where there's a little pixel out, but I was like, oh, that pixel's out. I'm like, that's annoying.
Same. We watched it in the cinema as well. That tiny little dead pixel in the projector.
It's like halfway through the film, I was like, oh, fucking pixel's out. And then cut back and I was like, oh, I missed everything that's happening now. And I'm putting it to the fault of the film to not
we won?
But it didn't keep my attention because it was so choppy and so full of exposition that I didn't care about from characters I didn't know.
Fair. CGI, bro.
I was about to say, my biggest negative is probably the excess of CGI, just because
so much.
We watched probably everyone who's watched the film recently has seen the trailer for the new Top Gun film.
Yep. Yeah.
And the great thing about the new Top Gun film is bloody Tom Cruise loves his practical effects, so they shot real planes. And the great thing about that is how crisp the planes look, how crisp everything looks, the background, everything, because they shot stuff like they did back in the 90s, 80s, and so on.
And you get the camera shake and
and it looks real. So good. And then you cut to this film where pretty much every shot had like a CGI element.
It's a video game.
They're on the ocean, and there's that bit of fuzz. And like every single CGI shot has that fuzz, except for probably the explosions, because they have a natural kind of blurriness to the outside of the smoke and everything. And so you're watching these planes that have a tiny little bit of fuzz on the sides of them, flying over an ocean, and where the ocean meets an island, it has the tiniest bit of fuzz in it, and it just looks a bit like, that's not real.
Yeah.
And there's just that thing in your mind. It's just like, that's not real.
Yeah. I knew it was going to be a problem right at the start, where they have an opening shot of a carrier and there's people running on the deck. And they're obviously CGI.
And it was an impossible camera movement as well. And it was just one of the things that was like, a camera would never move like that. Yeah.
CGI was used.
It looked like all of the CGI was like, okay, we've done all the CGI. Put a 2% blur filter or 2% motion blur filter on that. So it was just that little bit fuzzy out of focus looking.
Especially with contents such as like a World War II setting, where this isn't the first World War II film that we've got. And you can use the films in the past and what they've used and everything to make it feel like a World War II film.
And I know you wouldn't have been able to make this film without CGI. But it was just like, the planes and stuff like that. There was so much stuff that was just like, that's just a bit fuzzy.
There's one...
And it makes me think of the Lord of the Rings and them using miniatures and how good the miniatures look.
Yeah.
Because they're real things and they have that crispness that something real has.
There's one thing we're watching this film, and look, I know this is real, it happened in history, I understand this film is based on something real, and what I'm about to say is dumb. But also, I couldn't... Look, I'm happy to admit it. You don't need to argue it. I'll apologise immediately.
I also need a buzzer that has Jordan saying, what I'm about to say is dumb.
But, look, I'll apologise now. Sorry. But the general idea of having a really small boat that planes have to land on and take off of just sounds. It's just really dumb.
John's problem is not with the film. John's problem is with aircraft carriers.
Yes, no, but the thing is that this film emphasized so many times about how difficult it was to land and take off. And I couldn't help but just be like, let's make the boats bigger. Let's make them slightly bigger. There were so many times where they're just like, oh, he tried to take off but died. Oh, he died on landing on the boat. I'm like, I get why they need to be out to sea. It means they're closer to the...
Yeah.
Just make the boats bigger.
We're gonna need a bigger boat.
I get that it happened in real life. I understand why they did it. But this film just really... Every time it happened, I was like, that's clearly a dumb idea.
Well,
Go back to
if
the
they
drawing
made
board
the
and do
boat
something
bigger,
else.
the torpedo might have hit.
I know, but it was just the concept where, like, it showed too many examples of why this is a bad idea, to the point where, as a general audience member, I was like, this is clearly a bad idea. Like, it just made me, like...
Boats.
There's one
Who
part...
bloody trusts them?
Well, there's one part where...
Metal floating on water.
There's one part, planes I get though. There's one part where, like, you know, one of the pilots is a bit skittish, has to take off, and he goes to take off, and the boat that they're on isn't moving fast enough to generate enough velocity and wind to allow him to actually take off. And so he just drives the plane off into the water, and then that explodes. And I get that probably happened in real life.
Doesn't
That's
explode.
a tragedy. But I just watched it and thought, well, this is clearly a dumb idea. And that was just on my mind a lot.
Fair enough. Just naval warfare in general.
Naval warfare.
Guns on
doesn't
boats?
like.
How is that accurate?
Well, that's not gonna happen.
You're both bobbing up and down. What the hell's
People
going
are going to get shingles. That was a weird moment, because before it became anything, it was just a character we didn't know going, I got a rash, and then nothing on that for ages.
Also, that was like one of the main things in the war as well, that in that battle specifically as well, that kind of was the turning point. Is the Japanese thought they were up against this guy who historically is like very aggressive, so they were expecting to lure him into a trap. But at the end of the film, they're like, nah, we've done what we need to do, we're actually going to go home, kind of thing, which got them into an even better position. So again, like, they just kind of breeze over important facts like that.
Yeah.
Like, the only fact that I think they really kind of put forward well was the fact that it was
Planes
just
on
really
boats.
bad. It's just really bad timing for the Japanese to swap their armaments.
Yeah.
Which is why their ships just kind of blew up.
Plane belongs in the air. It doesn't belong on a boat.
Exactly. Shouldn't be on water. It's not a seaplane.
I'm sick of you and your backwards ways. Planes can be whatever they want. Okay, I'm going to end this on a little bit of trivia. I don't know if you guys picked up on it, and I didn't until I read the IMDb trivia. But it says, before the closing credits, the movie teases a sequel for the Battle of the Philippine Sea. That's
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to
I
not
did
see
not
that.
catch that.
No, and it's marked up for 2022.
Oh,
That's
well,
the
that'll be
release
the
date.
dad
So
film
that's-
quota of that
A
year.
sequel? How can you do a sequel to a real life event?
Where everyone...
Bjorn's
yeah.
back, baby!
We're bringing everyone back.
Okay, scene 1, exterior. Bjorn Einstein emerges from the water.
With a sword in hand.
With a sword in hand and half of his face burned off. He yells out, God damn the Nazis!
He smokes a cigar as he squints into the sun.
Cut 2.
All right, motherfucker.
Can I just ask, why out of all films over the
back.
past 2 and a bit years, you're like, you know what, Midway, IMDb trivia, let's do it. Out of all films, you're like, you know what, Midway's the one I'm going to do the extra
We
research
needed to
for.
talk about
Because
something.
I have an extra screen here, because we're recording at my place and I've got my whole setup,
Yeah,
as
the new
opposed
setup.
to the very compact setup.
And you
that
slices
I just have
slices,
to watch
if
your
you guys like the new
volumes
setup,
go up and down all
Make
the
sure to
time.
tell us. You probably have no idea.
Do we sound better? Who cares?
Please say no, I don't want to drive this far every time. I'd rather Angus drive this far.
All right, that's it. Next week we'll be reviewing another one.
Birds of Prey.
Birds of Prey.
Also, there's films
Yeah,
coming out.
birds are allowed in water too, Jordan. Okay,
No!
they're allowed in water.
Just not on boats or planes.
Live with it. Next week on the Film Slice podcast.
Oh, I love these new robotically enhanced legs. I feel so limber.
It was a weird choice to go with bright gold and pink.
I don't think they're legs.
Oh,
I think
they're my little pony dolls. Jordan, walk around.